This episode is part two of the interview that I did as part of the Autistically Wired interview series for the Autistic Career Pathways organization. They are an incredible organization doing the very important work of providing career counseling, career guidance, career mentorship for autistic people like myself.
So now in retirement, you are pursuing more of your special interests and YouTube. Can you talk more about that and talk about your channels, what those channels are, if you feel comfortable sharing? Because I know that right now, a lot of people are interested in pursuing that as a career. So if you could talk about your experience with that and maybe tips that you have for people that are interested in YouTube or social media.
So I'm old. I'm a fuddy duddy, so I don't understand that whole newfangled TikTok thing. Don't even understand Instagram. But YouTube, and to a certain extent Facebook, um, like I said, being retired means that I get to focus on the things that actually bring me some happiness now. And I'm still, and I'll be honest, like especially with the state of the world in terms of political and social um, morality just being gone. Um, I've been dealing with a lot of anxiety, some depression around it, just um, so that baseline happy that I'm trying to get to, I'm still not getting there. And also part of it is also related to my struggles as an autistic person. Like, I'm borderline agoraphobic at times. It's a good thing that I have all these nice things at home because leaving the house sometimes is a lot of work for me. Even going grocery shopping because I know that I'm going to be assailed by, like, the laundry detergent aisle at a grocery store is one of the worst things on the face of the earth for me. I mean, it's horrific. Um, and then you never know what people are going to be doing. And are people going to bump into you and want to are they going to touch you? Are they going to? I've had people like literally, like, I was in a grocery. This is a couple of years ago, but I was in a grocery store, and two people are chit chatting, and so I'm getting impatient because they're standing right in front of the produce that I needed to get at. I think I was getting artichokes to make something, and not artichokes, asparagus. And so I just was waiting for them to be done. And then when one of them noticed that I was waiting, they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and they moved out of the way. And this woman literally said, "Oh my God, you have such beautiful hair," and reached out to touch my hair. I'm like, just, uh, you know, it's anyhow. So there, so having something, having interests, lock picking, for instance. I locks on the shelf back there and everything. One of my YouTube channels is devoted to lock picking. I teach how to pick locks, and that's something I started as a child. When I read a book about Harry Houdini when I was, like, I don't know, I think I was 10, maybe I think I was 12 because I think it was 2 years. Okay, so I think I was 12 years old. I read a book about Harry Houdini and how he grew up down the street from a locksmith shop, and by the time he was 10, he could pick every lock in the shop. And I was like, I'm 12. I'm 2 years behind on my personal development. I need to start, So, I made myself a set of lock picks, and I started picking locks. And, being a troubled youth, I didn't always do entirely legal things with my newfound abilities. But it turned into this lifelong hobby and a fidget activity. I like you saw me playing with a cube. I'm a very fidgety type of person, and so like I would literally at work have a set of lock picks and locks on my desk. And then when I was on a conference call or something, I would just sit there picking locks or whatever. When video conferences became a thing, I would just keep my hands below the line of the camera, and I would be picking locks. So I have a YouTube channel that's devoted to lock picking. I have a YouTube channel that I just started about the Rubik's Cube and about speed cubing, because I'm an intermediate speed cuber. I average around 35 seconds. The world record is something stupid. I think it's 2.8 seconds, something like that. Something stupid. It's like literally ridiculous. The fastest my personal best is 18.6 seconds. So I guess that kind of places me mid-tier in terms of the people who are serious about it. But this also has been something that has been with me since I was a kid. I had one of the original Rubik's Cubes back in the 70s and 80s, and I taught myself how to solve it I would put little pieces of tape on the individual, I would put a piece of tape on this tile here, and then I would study how that piece of tape moved around as I did different things with the cube, right? As I manipulated, I'd watch how that piece of tape moved around, and so that's how I learned how to solve a Rubik's Cube. And because, like I said earlier, I have trouble sequencing things and doing things in order. There are algorithms that some people learn how to solve the Rubik's Cube by simply memorizing algorithms. If the cube is in this configuration, you do this set of moves. Boom, 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 boom. I struggle with that because keeping the sequence of moves in order is difficult for me, because keeping anything in order is difficult for me. So, I think, and plus there's a whole bunch of people who don't want to spend, months memorizing 140 different algorithms. And so I focus my YouTube videos, my YouTube channel, I focus on intermediate cubers like myself who either can't or don't want to memorize that many algorithms, and just talk about how to be fast or faster with what you have instead of trying to do 2.8 seconds or whatever the stupid record is. So there's that. I have a music YouTube channel where I post covers of songs, the occasional music theory lesson or whatever. And then I have my the one that I think is going to be the most, that I think is, I know right now is the most important channel to me, and the one that, even though I've been struggling with, inertia, trying to make content for it, it's going slowly. The whole making content and being consistent with content has been a problem for me. But I have one that focuses on the intersection of autism and adoption, and mostly it's been focused on autism. It's turning into a full-blown autism channel. So I'm trying to decide if I'm going to have another channel that'll be full-blown adoption. But anyways.
Do you want to share any of the names of these, or do you prefer not to?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
So one of my nicknames from when I was a kid is Pugs. And so we have Pugs Picks Locks. and that's for the lock picking YouTube channel. If you want to see what a full set of lock picks looks like, that's all the tools that I use for picking locks.
And I like the way that you set up your lockpicking videos too, where you show what the inside of the lock looks like, the different mechanics, and you have the tools. You share where you get the materials to pick the locks, or where you can get locks, and where you get supplies. It's a very cool educational channel.
It definitely has an educational bent. There are some lock picking channels that are just all about how to pick a lock the fast, like just showing off how fast they can pick a lock or whatever. And then there's a lot of people who just have a lock picking YouTube channel just because there are actually belt rankings like karate belts. There are belt rankings for lock picking. The Lock Pickers United (LPU) organization hands out belt rankings, so you can be a black belt lock picker. And so you have to pick on camera in order for them to verify that you've met the criteria for opening a certain level of difficulty. And so they have YouTube channels specifically for that. Mine is an educational focus. I lock picking, and like people are like, aren't you encouraging people to break the law? No, because I know, being a juvenile delinquent, growing up as a juvenile delinquent, that it's much easier and much faster to break a lock than it is to pick a lock. Destructive entry is always easier. So break a window. This rock, throw it through a window. That's much easier than sitting there and trying to pick a lock. It's much faster. So destructive entry, and most criminals, and I know this firsthand, being a juvenile delinquent when I was young, destructive entry is always faster. So no, I'm not teaching people how to break the law. I'm teaching people a fun hobby that builds fine motor skills, builds problem solving skills. It's like a puzzle, and you have to picture in your head, because you can't see inside that tiny little keyhole. You can't see inside of it, especially when you have picks in there. So instead, you have to picture in your head what the pick is doing inside of the lock. And so you have to picture the lock mechanism and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that one has a very educational bent. And right now, that's the one that I had been most consistent about. And here's the thing about making money on YouTube is consistency is king. You have to be consistently producing content. Right now, because I had been very consistent with lockpicking videos for a couple years, that's the only channel right now that actually earns me money, and it's not a lot of money. It's like if I were more consistent producing the videos today, if I continued that consistency, it would be a lot more. But for right now, just it's like $100 or a couple $100 a month at the most, which is just becomes, goes into the fun fund, right? Where I can buy new toys, new instruments, or whatever. So that's an educational thing. The speed cubing channel is an educational thing. The music channel is mostly a show off type of thing. Not that I'm the greatest musician, like I said, but I like showing off the covers
The
that I
way
do.
that you produce your videos is very cool. Like there was one video that I saw where you played all the different parts and then you have yourself in the video. Like that, the production was very cool. And the ability to be able to play all those different parts is very interesting.
Well, that's the part that when it comes to music, I love arranging, right? I love coming up with different parts. I'm primarily a guitarist. I primarily play guitar, but and I sing, sort of. I mean, not the best singer, but I like singing. So I play guitar and I can sing. So that's two parts. And then I'm good enough on a keyboard that I can I can hold chords on a keyboard and stuff like that, and play chord patterns on the keyboard. So that's another part that I can add. Bass that's bass hanging over there, is very similar to guitar. And so I can write bass parts in my head and then play those. And so just being able to write my own arrangements for things. I love arranging things. One of the things, when I still lived in Wisconsin, one of my friends up there, she has one of the most incredible voices on the face of the earth. She's an incredible singer. And so collaborating with her and doing collaborations with her, and then writing a vocal arrangement that's harmonies for me and her to sing together or whatever. So combining that with, the recording engineering aspect of it, being able to record each track and layer each track on top of each other so that they line up properly. So being able to record the parts, and then I have professional camera equipment because I used to run a photography business, right? And I have professional lighting. So I can make videos look nice. Video editing is one step away from photo editing, which is what I'd spent, decades doing because I ran a photography business. So the video editing and being able to put composite all the different videos together. I do the same thing with some of the lockpicking videos. Is I'll have 2 or 3 camera views and I'll just composite the different views into the same video and everything. So, and part of that, it still appeals to the technical side of my brain. I spent decades in IT, and so being able to spend time, using technology to create these things, like those composite videos. Like I have one for House of the Rising Sun where I think I'm playing keyboard, guitar, 2 guitar parts, bass, and then vocals, and 2 backup singers. I'm doing all 3 vocal parts also. No, that was Wicked Game that I did that for, and a drum part.
I saw, and that's one of my favorite songs. This is so cool. The way you did that, it's impressive.
It's one of my favorite songs on the face of the earth also. And it's such a great, the structure of that song being, 3 chords repeated over 4 measures over and over again throughout the entire song. You wouldn't think that it's such a simple structure listening to the song, but it really is. And I play it in A Dorian. So it's such a great song to be able to build an arrangement around, because it's the same 3 chords looping. It's A minor, G, D, D. So 4 measures, 3 chords, and that just loops the entire way through the entire song. And so you can build different arrangements around that and over it and through it. It's a great song for doing that type of compositing thing with, and for building out a bigger, fuller, lush arrangement type of thing. But yeah, so being able to apply the technical side of my brain to the recording aspect and also to the video editing aspect, and then the musical side of my brain to building out an arrangement and coming up with all the different parts, the instrumental parts and the vocal parts, and all the it combines so many things for me. I do want to, with that one, I want to do more. I want to do more Theory Thursday, is I think what I called them. Theory Thursday videos where I'm teaching music theory. And maybe also teaching, how I do those composite videos and all that kind of stuff. But the music channel right now is mostly just for me I made a cool cover. I think it's a cool cover. So I'm going to throw it out into the world and see if it gets any attention. And then the Like I said, the speed cubing one is educational. It's for rank beginners and for up to the intermediate level that I'm at. It's not for the professional speed cubers who are sub 10 second. You know, if I ever get a time that's sub 10 seconds, I'm just gonna like I'm gonna encase this in glass and, you know, put it in a museum or something. the But the one that I feel most passionate about, and also the one that's hardest for me to produce videos for, is the Autistic Adoptee channel. Pugs Solves Cubes is this one. Pugs Plays Music is the music one, and Pugs Picks Locks is the lock picking one. But the Autistic Adoptee channel, which is where you folks at Autistically Wired found me. That's the one that I care the most about, and that's, I think, part of the reason why it's such a struggle for me to finish making outlines and then actually recording, because it's such a vulnerable thing. I talk about some very gross confession time. This interview is the reason why my hair is freshly washed and looking all purty. Is the reason why my body is freshly washed, because you need to. If I'm in the shower washing my hair, I'm going to wash the rest of me too. But honestly, it was over a week since my last shower. And so that's the type of thing that I talk to, is that inertia and that demand avoidance and the sensory overwhelm. I mean, a shower is by nature a sensory overwhelm type of experience. And so I have to come up with all these strategies and everything to try to help myself through that. And that's, when I was working a 9 to 5, I literally had this routine every morning that I followed step by step by step by step by step. And I forced myself to do it every day. And, showering, my hair was short back then. And so showers were much easier and much faster. So that step by step by step by step type of routine included a shower. But if I missed any step in there, I would be thrown for the rest of the day if anything went even a little bit awry. But that's the type of thing that I talk about on the autism channel, is the fact that personal hygiene can be hard. I have massive sensory things with brushing my teeth, and so brushing my teeth is sometimes brushing my teeth is something that I do almost exclusively while I'm in the shower. And so that means that as a daily practice, it kind of goes by the wayside. So I have to come up with other things like constant flossing and mouthwash. I go through so much more Listerine than the average human does. So I talk about some of those uncomfortable things, and these are very highly personal, very vulnerable type of things that I talk about on that channel. And that's, I think, the reason. There's a really, really super long-winded way of saying that's the reason why, even though I care the most about that channel, I struggle the most to produce content for it.
I like that channel a lot because I appreciate the way that you are vulnerable and do talk about your lived experiences and do talk about the accommodations that you have had to provide yourself over the years. And I think that will be very important for young autistic people watching this and hopefully going to your YouTube channel and supporting you to learn. And I think that it's a common lived experience too for autistic people to have maybe a troubled past or have anger issues, and you have talked about stuff like that on the channel. There's so much useful content. And so I appreciate your vulnerability a lot on there. And it's been very informative for me watching it. And I see so much of myself in the content that you share and being vulnerable about things like hygiene and how I know that's a struggle for myself or other autistic people, where it is a sensory thing and more demands. And when you already have a demanding job, you want to take something off of your plate so that you can just live some days.
Right. That's yeah. I mean, I have found that that I'm not alone. In some of these things that used to be a source of shame for me. And having to come up with like different strategies and like ways of doing things that would allow me to do the things that other people take for granted. I think a lot of neurotypical people take, most hygiene tasks for granted. This is just what we do. Okay. And that's not how my brain works. And I'm learning that that's not how a lot of other people's brains work also. I remember, being a kid and, it was, I don't know, maybe fourth, fifth. No, it was earlier than that. Like first or second, third grade, something like that. Um, and a dental hygienist came to school and did a big presentation. Had a huge jaw, like that was just teeth and gums, and then with a big old toothbrush demonstrated proper brushing technique and everything like that. And I don't know why they would do this to kids, but they had a questionnaire like, how often do you brush your teeth? What toothpaste do you use? And all this kind of like, and I had, for the how often you brush your teeth or whatever, I said I'd put down, once a week or something like that. And because I hate it. I've always hated brushing my teeth. It's always been a problem. It's always been a sensory nightmare for me. And I remember the school nurse, the prince, and not the principal, the teacher, whatever grade that was, it had to have been like second grade, calling my mother to have a talk about why am I only brushing my teeth once a week and blah, and how humiliating that was, right? And and I know that they were doing it out of kindness. They thought that they were helping, right? They thought they were helping, but how absolutely humiliating that was. Like at the end of the big toothbrushing demonstration in the classroom, being told to stay back because I did something wrong. And the other kids are like, why do they want to talk to you after class? Being a kid is hard, and being singled out for something is hard, and things like that. It's just, anyway, it's just, so yeah. I do think my hope, my goal is that because I have found in, some of the autism communities online that I lurk in, that occasionally will post a comment or something like that in, I have found in those communities that I'm not alone, right? That other people struggle with these same things. I'm hoping that by showing a full grown 53-year-old autistic adult who still struggles with these things and talking about them openly, I'm hoping that, it'll help younger autistic people avoid a lot of the shame that I felt and just be able to accept this is the way my brain works. This is what my brain will, this is just how it is. This is normal for me. It doesn't have to be normal, quote unquote, for society. It doesn't have to be neurotypical. This is normal for me. This is normal for how my brain works. I can find ways to be healthy. I have incredible teeth. Every time I go into the dentist, they're always talking about how, oh, you're doing such a great job brushing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, ha ha ha, joke's on you. I brush like once every other day at the most, and once a week sometimes. If I only shower once a week, then I'm only brushing my teeth once a week. There are ways to be healthy within the constraints and the parameters of who you are and what you are and how your brain works. There are ways to do things. I have ways to help me overcome the inertia and demand avoidance that prevents me from getting to the shower. I have strategies for dealing with the sensory overwhelm while I'm standing in a shower. And one of those is to distract myself by putting a movie or a TV show that I'm currently binging on my phone, and my phone's waterproof, and so I can just hang it on the shower rack and have that, so I have something I can focus on other than the sensory nightmare that's happening of going, when I'm in the water, I get too hot, and then when I'm out of the water, I get too cold. And then if I put it lukewarm, after a while that starts to feel too cold. And if I go a little bit hotter, then I overheat too easily. Then I get out of the shower and I'm sweating, and because the shower was hot and it's humid in here, and so now I'm sweating. And then I open the door and it's a blast of cold. All these sensory, all the sensory information that's constantly changing. That's the problem. The predictability, the consistency is not there. It's constantly changing sensory data. And transitions are hard. They're hard for many autistic people. Transitioning from I'm doing this thing to I'm doing that thing is hard. And so transitioning from I'm having this sensory experience to this brand spanking new sensory experience that's related but not quite the same, that's hard. And I having to shampoo my hair and water's running into my eyes, and I already have eye issues and blah blah blah, all those types of things. And the feeling of wet hair touching your back, like just sticking and dragging across, so there's all of this overwhelm. So I have strategies for how I deal with each one of those things, and I've built them out, and hopefully by being a little bit more vulnerable about things like that and sharing things like that it can save some other young or even late diagnosed like me and like you, autistic person. I can spare them some of the trauma that I went through trying to figure out how to manage all of these things, by being open. And I want to give back to the autism community, the autistic community. I get so fed up sometimes hearing parents of autistic children spouting absolute nonsense on the internet. And so I want to give even their children, and I'm not trying to slam every parent of an autistic child, right? There are some who are absolutely phenomenal in doing all the right things and empowering their child and getting them the right occupational and speech therapy and everything else. So I'm not slamming every parent. Just want to put that out there. There are plenty. There's a slew of great parents doing a wonderful job parenting autistic children. But there are those ones who are very noisy and loud on the internet about harmful notions. I won't get into the whole vaccine thing and all that kind of, but who are, I had put my child on an anti-inflammatory diet and all of a sudden it cured their autism. No, it did not cure their autism. It did not. No, it didn't.
But that's where your niche of being a retired autistic adoptee is very valuable. And that is the last thing that I wanted to talk about today, too, is what advice do you have towards an hardworking autistic person who is navigating retirement and what you would do now that you don't really have to have structure in your day where you were
Mm.
used to so much structure and so much of your time was spoken for, where now it's up to you, right?
It is, and so it's a blessing and a curse. I do not function in the morning. I do not at I've had sleep problems my entire life. I have to have a very rigid sleep schedule. I am, and my wife honestly thought that she was helping because she knew how chronically tired I was. And so sometimes in the morning, if she woke up and she saw that I was actually sleeping well, she would turn off my alarm. And she thought she was helping by letting me get extra sleep. But then what that ends up doing is I end up sleeping late, which means I'm my waking hours then get pushed off by however, like if I slept in for 2 hours, then that means that I'm not going to bed. I'm going to bed 2 hours later than usual, and then my entire sleep schedule gets thrown off. And that the best thing to do is to stay on that schedule because so um, but now I don't have to deal with mornings the same way, right? And that's a blessing. Things like that are a blessing, but not having that structure to know what I'm doing at every moment means that sometimes I'm doing absolutely nothing. And so maybe that's a curse or maybe that's still a blessing because doing nothing is sometimes exactly what you should be doing, right? I spent, my entire adult working life doing something, for corporations. I worked for Fortune 100 companies. I worked for giant corporations, multi-billion dollar enterprises, right? And so sometimes doing nothing is what I'm supposed to be doing, what I should be doing. The best, the hardest, one of the best things and hardest things about being retired and discovering that I'm autistic and all that kind of stuff is the unmasking. I spent so long, so much of my life masking that I have trouble picking out where the mask is and where I am. I have trouble distinguishing between the two sometimes. Like this thing that I like, do I like it because I like it, or do I like it because my mask liked it? And I'm finding more and more things that I'm like, oh, and the more I sit with it and realize, I'm like, oh, my mask liked that. And even when I was like, when I thought that, when I didn't realize that what I was doing was masking, I was like all in on this one thing, blah, and I actually didn't like it. My mask liked it, and that distinguishing between who I am and who the mask is, and then being able to strip away those layers and trying to find more and more of myself. It's incredibly hard, but I've found it incredibly rewarding also. Like the photography thing, I no longer run the photography business, and I used to always carry a camera around, and I used to be a photographer. I always carried a camera around. I was always taking pictures of things and everything like that. That was part of my identity. I was a photographer. And I haven't touched a camera in 5 years, something like that. I'm actually getting ready to sell all of my multi-$1,000s worth of camera gear so that I can buy more musical instruments. But, and this is actually really, really hard for me to say because of being a photographer was such a part of my identity. I taught photography. I was a photography TA for, undergrad, at the undergrad level. I taught continuing educations in photography. I ran a photography business. I carried a camera everywhere I went, always. I was a photographer. And when my photography business kind of blew up, because I sort of had a partner in the business who was a kind of a silent partner, and then when she wanted to get more involved, we had a she just, anyways, the photography business ended and the friendship ended at the same time. Big mess. But anyways, the and I haven't touched a camera since. And I'm starting to realize, I'm realizing that I wasn't a photographer. That I might have liked photography, but that being a photographer, that was the mask. And partly because having a camera in my hand gave me a reason not to be, involved in the rest of the group, because I'm the one taking pictures. Having a camera in my hand meant that I had something to fidget with and play with, and I could be over here taking a picture of this stunningly interesting floorboard and not being dragged into this party or whatever is going on that I'm supposed to be at, right? I can do, it was a crutch. It was and it started out of genuine interest, because of my big brother from the Big Brother Big Sister organization when I was a child. It started as a genuine interest, and it's always was an interest and something that I liked, in part because it was a connection with my big brother. But the extent that it became part of my identity, that I think might have been the mask. And that's really hard for me to say because that was such a big part of my life for so long. As soon as I left the corporate world, I haven't watched an NFL football game since I left the corporate world. Or maybe even a little bit before. And I used to be in like 3 fantasy football leagues at a time. That was the mask. And can you imagine the amount of mental and energy that goes into managing 3 fantasy football teams, and one of them I was the commissioner of, and it's all of those. So stripping away the layers and finding out who I am. And that's, I think, the most important thing that a retired autistic, especially a late diagnosed autistic person, can do. I think that is where they're going to find their most rewarding, truly happy path to themselves. It's by finding who they are and then leaning into who they are. Not leaning into the mask, not using the crutch, not using those little social tricks and social scripts that we built for ourselves to help us through and navigate every social situation, or not the over planning, not the overthinking. Just figure out what parts of you are actually you, what are truly you, what parts of the mask, and discard the mask. And that, I think, is, in retirement. And for me, it's been focusing on creating content for my YouTube channels. It's been playing music. It's been binge watching TV shows. It's been, it's really stupid, but on my phone, I play Othello, and I am at 89.54% win rate. And my goal, damn it, is to get to 90%. I am going to get a 90% win rate, damn it. And I've literally played something like 17,000 games of Othello on my path to try to get to that 90% mark. But I'm like, what's the point of having a high IQ if I don't use it, right? So just find what brings, what makes you happy. Sometimes playing music makes me happy. My hands, I have really bad arthritis. And when the medication, I can feel it's like a monthly injection, and I can feel it wearing off at the end of the month. And so maybe playing an instrument isn't going to make me happy because it makes my hands hurt, right? Maybe one day I spend hours upon hours playing with this thing, figuring out new little tricks to do, to make it speed to shave like a second off my time or whatever. And some days it's not. Um, some days it's like actually banging away on my laptop or sitting down here and banging away at the big computer here, um, writing scripts or outlines for content for the different channels and coming up with ideas for content and writing those down. Maybe it's that frenetic burst of energy that makes me happy, that hyper focus that makes me happy. And some days it's not. Some days it's going to a hardware store, buying a new lock, and sitting there and just picking it over and over and over again, opening it up over and over and over again. See if I can open it up a little bit faster each time or whatever. See what I can learn from this particular lock, because every lock talks to you differently. So what can I learn from this one? What is this one saying to me? What does it feel like inside? What is it doing inside as I'm picking it? Maybe it's, another thing that I love doing in my retirement is cooking. And there I go through these cooking bursts, and if anybody ever looks at my Facebook feed, they'll see like all these meals that I make at home. And then I'll go a week or two where I don't want to cook at all. But it's really the transition out of the transition for me, the transition of retirement, the transition of leaving the corporate world and even if I hadn't been in the corporate world, even if I'd been in a job or a career that was better suited or more aligned with one or more of my interests, like music or whatever, like I talked about, maybe working in the music industry in some way or the audio engineering field. No matter what it is, when you retire and you're transitioning out of it, one of the biggest things I think for an autistic person is not having those additional demands placed on you. And that means that you actually have the time and the space for that autonomy to explore the things you want. And so stripping away all the garbage and the nonsense that that the rest of the world, the rest of the noise, being able to strip all that away and being able to truly discover that baseline happiness, where you are. If I spend the rest of my retirement just gradually nudging that baseline up a little bit at a time, then I will have had very fulfilled retirement, a very fulfilled third chapter of my life, right? First chapter school, second chapter working, third chapter retired, being who I genuinely am, doing the things that genuinely make me happy, that genuinely contribute to that baseline. I think that's one of the most important things that you can do for yourself, is to just learn to accept, first discover who you are, strip away what pieces are not you, what pieces you had to wear, and you wore them so long that they're stuck to your skin now. And so you have to really peel those away to truly discover if it's you or if it's the mask. Peel away all those pieces and then just work towards that baseline of happiness.
And that's a beautiful place to end too, because it sounds like that is the ultimate goal, is finding yourself and finding happiness and that balance.
I mean, it's a shame that our economy and the all the social pressures and everything else in our world is geared towards one way of being, and kind of expecting is to cram as many people into that mold of being as possible, except for if you're rich, in which case you get to be whatever you want and do whatever you want. But for everybody else, we get crammed into that one mold. It's a shame that that's where, that we have to spend so much of our lives doing that that being able to just unplug from all of that, and that's what I'm doing in my retirement, being able to unplug from all of that and finally learn who I am. I wish I'd been able to do this as a child. I think childhood should be more about exploration and figuring oneself out than learning how to sit still in a classroom. Childhood should be more about learning through play, learning through doing, rather than regurgitating information that's, flooding, that they cram down your throat with a fire hose or whatever. Anyhow, yeah, I think that might be a good place to leave it. Like I said, I tend to be long-winded, and I'm probably rambling about the same topics over and over now.
So I was going to say, we can cut this out, but we'll wrap it up now, and I'll say like a little ending, but I'll end the recording, but you can stay on the call. All right. So wrapping up, thank you so much for being here with us today, Tad. I appreciate all of your insight on your life, navigating retirement, finding your joy, your happiness. It's been very insightful, and I've enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that this is something that a lot of other people can learn from, because you have a lot of great advice. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm sorry that I'm so long-winded, but I really, really, really appreciate the chance to talk to you about all of these things, and hopefully it'll help, young people who are either going into the corporate world or going into the IT world, or they're on the precipice. They're trying to decide where they want to go and how they want to be, and hopefully it'll help one or two of them, and maybe even help one or two other retirees.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, remember to drop a like and leave a comment or a question down below. If you're new here, subscribe and ring the notification bell for more content like this. Until the next video, keep living your best life and know that you deserve it.